Hello. Hi. It is I, Serendipity Wyrd. Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is for you. It's morning for me. My hair is doing something. But we're going to ignore that because I had a quick realization as I was starting to try to prep for work and get the ever important coffee. By the way, I find this cup really fun. It says I'm 100% that witch. And we found it at a Cracker Barrel. So that was just interesting. Anyway, so I was responding to some conversations and some comments to some other folks on YouTube. And I was mostly around making videos, not making videos, the struggles of making videos, right? How to incorporate when you want to have a channel and you want to do things, but life, I don't know, actual paying work, stuff like that. How do you make videos? It's time to have a sip real quick. Yay, caffeine. And then I realized instead of posting, maybe a comment back about, figuring out where to find time to make a video, maybe I could just make a video because I had a few minutes before I was scampering off to go do work things. So that's pretty exciting. So I'm here. It's a video. I've been wanting to make a video since the beginning of the year because I wanted to share sort of what my plans for the year are. Roughly, they're not really solid. I'm letting them be sort of an amorphous blob. But I do want to talk about it because I want to create my own record of, where the successes are, where the struggles are, how to bridge that gap, and how to continue to move closer to, sort of creating the life I want, whatever. Taking myself to a place that I envision. And this year, somehow, between both my own brain and then it was echoed without me having said anything yet by one of my yoga teachers, and I was like, you're saying the same thing to me that my brain has been thinking. Hello, rooster. Good morning to you too. The neighbors have chickens, so we will hear sounds. That's just what's happening. And yes, this porch is a mess, and that's also what's happening. We're just making a video anyway, right? We're not letting these little things prevent us from taking some sort of action on the goals that we have. Anyway, goals for this year. So as I was kind of transitioning into this year, moving from last year into this year, trying to figure out for, I don't know, probably 10 years now, I've preferred to set sort of a theme for the year over picking particular goals because I have found that for this brain, particular goals almost automatically result in not doing that thing at all. At all. Because the particular way that my brain works is to absolutely 100% rebel against anything that I say I want to do. It's really annoying. I've found ways to work around this as I've been kind of tracking this tendency of mine. But it's still really frustrating. So I've started to try to do things, to give myself goals in a way that gives me permission to work within the confines of my own brain struggles. But I totally lost my train of thought, hence why I'm I've started to think about the fact that sometimes my energy wanes, sometimes my interest wanes, and that's not anything that says that I am a bad person, or like in like the inconsistency that I tend to have in life is not necessarily, bad, right? Um because yeah, it's not like it's not, and I get things done. And when it's stuff that, like I absolutely need to do to survive, like I can typically do most of those things pretty okay. So when it's more about, my personal interests and my long-term desires and all of that, like giving myself leeway for integrating these things, especially when they're the things that may not be patterns of behavior I'm super used to. Anyway, so what are the goals? It's a good question. What are the goals? I went to a local like there's a group in the town that I'm in, which is like the town of Fort Myers, Florida, that there's a group called Visuality, which is an LGBTQ plus organization, support group. We get together, we do things, stuff like that. And for the first meeting of this month, we had the opportunity to like kind of answer a questionnaire about like maybe what our goals are, and like expand on that, and some really good questions in terms of, like what do you like, what are obviously things like what might be the struggles in like going for this goal, how do you think it's going to change your life, that kind of thing. I decided that the theme words, because I hadn't really come up with them yet, normally this is sort of work that my brain does between my birthday in September and like the end of the year. Normally the last quarter of the year is sort of me figuring out where do I want to go next, like reflecting on the previous year, because it's already sort of a new year starting for me because of the whole birthday in September thing, right? But it doesn't really, and then coming from like the witchy world with Samhain, Halloween, all of those events in October, there's like a witchy calendar of the year, wheel of the year, where some people consider October 31st being a reset point, being the witch's new year. So there's like, I have these series of like new years that sort of blend into building up to January 1st. But the last like 2 years, it's been much more challenging for me to sort of exist in that vibe or really do a lot of planning or mapping. And I haven't quite pinpointed why that is. I mean, I'm sure it has to do with just generally things feel sort of less stable, like just generally speaking, both from like huge social contexts, also just to like my home life is pretty stable, but like finances have been a hot mess, stuff like that. So I think that has had something to do with this sort of struggle to be able to like sit down at one time and be like, I am going to consider what I want my year to be. So I've let it just kind of, like I've let that be okay, right? Like I'm not super pushing myself to, I still really haven't sat down until I went to this one get together to like be like, okay, no, now I'm going to come up with like a word, right? Because that was the top thread of this activity was word for the year. And then like sort of 3 goals, and then we branched out, well, at least I did for the first one, and then running out of time, I really haven't gone back to like expand on the other 2, at least not on paper, but that's okay. So after sort of naming the goals, which so the goals are make money. That's a thing, right? I currently have done fantastic work making my finances like and stressful, and I don't want that. Like there's no reason for that. So one goal this year is to work toward making money, paying down debt, all of that stuff, right? Like I'm currently 41 years old, and I already feel the sort of time clock of life coming up, right? Like there's been shifts in like physical ability and all that kind of stuff. So it's like I want to try to address this area of my life to plan for the future. Yeah. So making money, that's one thing. And then second piece of that being creating art, because I was spending a lot of time at my art desk earlier last year, and then kind of since December, maybe holiday reasons, I'm distracted by the chickens and the rooster, because the chickens come and kind of wander in my yard. It's like its whole thing. Anyway, I was very regularly like sitting down at my art desk doing art things, and I've gotten away from that for about the past month or so. And yeah, the rooster is in my yard now. That's why it's getting louder. And I'm trying really hard not to like judge myself for that, and not to be like, oh look, we have had an activity that we enjoy and now we've suddenly dropped it again. Because that's just kind of part of the way that I do. I move from things to thing. I am missing the creating of art, and so I know I want it back in my life. I've got to like tidy up my art desk. That's part of the struggle. And there have been household changes in turn. Like I'm doing some like shifting of how spaces are used and stuff. So I think that's part of it too. And just like I've been working a lot because it's that, goal one. But anyway, so I know that the creating art piece is going to sort of come back in. And that is something that currently I am really focusing on doing for me, like because I enjoy it, and exploring like so for my birthday I bought myself a year-long like art course essentially, from Everything Art. It's called Wanderlust. Looked cool, lots of different teachers, lots of different techniques, and I was like, that could be pretty cool, because the like tools I work with now are tools that are still really new to me, as I've been finally like allowing myself to play around with mixed media versus just watch other people do it. So I think one of my next steps into creating the space for creating art to exist in my life again is to probably just set a date with myself every week, like once a week at this time we do the art. I think that might work. I hadn't really thought about that till just now. This is part of why I want to create videos, because when I'm talking out loud, like that's how I process things. It's easier for me than in my head. So yeah, maybe we'll try setting, this is my sacred art time during the week for sure. I was kind of like, that time was kind of most evenings, but I'm utilizing my evenings differently also. So it's just, there's a lot going on. I'm figuring out how all the pieces of the puzzle kind of go together, and that's okay. The third point, move my body. That's the third one. I'm like, what is the third thing that is my goal this year? Moving the body, physical expression, physical movement. I am teaching yoga a minimum of 2 times a week right now, so that's good. Even though there's not tons of movement in the classes I teach, because I'm teaching either a restorative or a yin style, depending on sort of what's needed, and those styles are very slow and very minimal movement, but still pretty intense from time to time. Not restorative. Restorative's like taking a nap, and it's amazing. and it's been so beneficial to me throughout like the years. But yin can be pretty intense because the aim is to sort of move into a space that's like an edge for you, and then stretching into that space, like letting that space expand over time. Anyway, I could make a whole separate video on like what yin is and what I do and what I like and all, you know, all of that, why it's a thing I teach. That's not the point here. The point here is that moving my body is one of my goals. And I'm not really sure what I want that to look like. I don't know what I want that to feel like. I know that I deal with a lot of physical pain almost every day. I have some sort of pain that I'm like breathing through. And I'm not, like, my tolerance for things that are more like cardio in nature is very low even now, like what, 2 years? Yeah, like 2 years post COVID, because I did actually have COVID at one point, but it was like early 2022, I think. Ever since then, I've like just kind of felt off in my like breathing and things like that. So, and I already deal with a lot of anxiety, so it can be like that can be an anxiety trigger. It's a whole thing. So I'm working through that because I'm like, okay, but we're still gonna work to improve this and like, you know, address recovery and all of that kind of thing. So yes, so the goals for the year are make money, create art, move the body. Cool. Those are really broad, right? Like those aren't very specific. A lot of times people, you know, encourage you to have specific, like SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable or something, are time-based. I don't know. But I'm not, like, those are, I would maybe not call them goals. Maybe we could call them themes, because it's more about helping myself align with the themes I want prevalent in my life rather than doing a specific thing. So I'm creating like actual goals within those sort of umbrellas. Like those are sort of the umbrellas. Like I want to create goals in this theme. Maybe that's a better way to explain it. Because that's kind of how I am envisioning it. Anyway, but the major sort of shift, and it was really funny when my yoga teacher like said something very similar about how she's like moving through her year, is that I've been thinking maybe the New Year's thing, the New Year's resolutions and stuff aren't necessarily super helpful for people, right? Because you get on this like, oh, I want to change my life. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. And you might create like a very specific plan, right? And like, okay, I'm going to get up at this time and I'm going to, you know, get out the door and I'm going to do this. And I'm going to go to the gym at this point and I'm going to whatever. Like, but then life gets in the way and then you kind of drop the habit altogether. Sometimes you might pick it back up, but like for me, it's historically been difficult to like pick it back up. So I was like, but what if I'm doing it backwards? What if that is just not like the accessible sort of idea for me? That maybe trying to start from the place I want to be is not sustainable for me. What if I set what I want, you know, what I think I want my life to look like as the end goal, right? And was like, okay, by December 31st, it would be neat to be living in such a way that I have consistent physical movement and activity in my life. I have consistent art creating in my life, which includes creating YouTube videos. And I have consistent money-making endeavors happening in my life. What could that look like? And then what if it's not that I'm trying to start out on January 1st and be like, this is my week, this is my day, this is how I do all these things, especially because I live in sort of a very chaotic vibe in general, and various elements of my life like contribute to that. Let's breathe for a second and maybe, you know, sip a beverage if you have one. But don't breathe and sip the beverage simultaneously. We'll do those as separate activities. One moment. All right. Like, I'm supposed to be drinking this coffee while I do this so that I'm not completely using up all the time that I should be, you know, prepping for work. But anyway, so I'm now shifting my brain shift, to consider that I'm not like starting a whole new life on January 1st. That has never worked for this human. Maybe it works for some humans. I don't know. All I know is what it's like to have this brain and this body, and that doesn't work for me. So what if instead we are looking at this as an adventure towards a goal, right? We're on a sacred quest this year to resolve some debt. I don't know, like I keep thinking like you should set a percentage to some, and I'm like, probably. Probably. Especially like I'm sure the smart goals crowd is like, these are not goals, these are terrible. But that's okay, because I'm trying to figure out what works in this brain. And it's I don't know. It doesn't seem very typical, okay? Brain's kind of spicy over here in this body. So let's figure this out. So yeah, we want to pay off some debt, want to have like more liquidity of finances, not buying so much stuff, not consuming so much stuff. This all kind of goes into that make money piece of the puzzle. It doesn't mean that I'm immediately going to be like, oh, I won't spend money on that. I've been doing pretty good about that, but also learning that it's a process. I'm learning a whole new way of life here, right? Why would I expect that day one out of the gate I would have it? These are all new skills I have to learn. What? New skills? Skills take time to build. So the goal is by the end of the year to have better control of my finances, to have, like I said, less debt being a factor in that puzzle, to have less sort of desire and urge to just buy things, especially things that I don't have a plan for using, like to avoid buying things that just seem cool or like I get momentarily excited about, because I can definitely recognize that the spicy brain here is like, ooh, that's shiny, let's have that. But then I'm just frustrated because I have too many of that's, too many things. Like we have a whole shelf of random, random things here. Some of them are art projects in the process. Some of them are just, I don't know. So in that category of sort of physicality as well is also leans into some decluttering, some, getting rid of objects and things that don't really have a purpose in my life that I'm just holding on to, and using the art supplies, which moves us to the creating art bit. By the end of the year, having a pretty consistent sort of like it being second nature to me to be creating. Especially through the last half of last year, that was really becoming a thing. Like I now pack like yarn and a crochet hook when I go places, because I know I don't like to like be in social settings for a long time with nothing to do. So there, it's a creative thing. I can do it someplace. That's awesome. Things like that. So yeah. And then the moving the body piece, probably actually taking some yoga classes, right? Instead of just teaching. I have a plan for that. That's part of rearranging some things in the house, is creating a space where it's like my yoga space and I can reliably lay the mat out there. There's nothing in the way of that. And I can put on a video and practice some yoga on my own. It's pretty doable. But again, if I had said like, oh, I have to be on January 1st ready to do that, I would already feel like I had failed because I don't have that space set up for multiple reasons. Like there were some things in the way, like I need to get rid of some things. Like I said, there's decluttering that has to happen. So instead, these are goals that I'm looking for. How will my life look at the end of it, at the end of this year, right? Not at the end of my life. That's another question, but that's bigger than this video can, you know, and we're already at like 25 minutes and we're not going to edit this because we're going to upload it immediately so it goes on the YouTubes. Let us breathe again. And then after, sip a beverage if you have one. Okay. So I think this focus on my goals are a year-long set of goals is going to be helpful to my brain because that gives me a reason to continue to come back to them. Even when I, quote unquote, fail, right? Even if I like drop these habits for a minute, a week, you know, a month, whatever. Even if I get out of the habits I'm building, the goal, like the theme itself this year is to be at a better place in these things by the end of the year. So therefore there's an automatic built-in, hey, go back to doing those things, like momentum. Last year, I had a whole, like, probably 8 kind of categories that I was looking to make progress in. The big piece of it was I had taken a vow to not eat meat specifically because I was going into a more advanced or a more involved yoga teacher training, which I'm like halfway through-ish now. It's like a year-long program. 300-hour training. I already have a 200-hour training. Anyway, that's a whole nother whatever yoga stuff. And the studio I practice at is vegan, so I was like, you know what? We can just cut out at least eating the meats because it's a thing I've gone back and forth on anyway for a year. Like, because you can commit to something for a year. I was like, if I set a time base on it, then in the moments that I'm like, I don't want this thing to be my life anymore, I can just be like, look, you just got to hold on. Just hold on till December. It's fine. Then if you decide you want to consume all the animals, like you've tried it. You've given it a good solid try for a year. And that's kind of where I really found that having the container of the year to make a change in my life was really fun to explore. And on that note, still vegetarian over here. Specifically ovo-lacto vegetarian, eating the eggs and the dairy, and yes, ethically questionable, but that's where we're at. So that's where we're at. And we're not going to feel guilty about it. Okay? Not doing it. So that brought me to, I can make these changes over this year. Right? I can just slowly and over time figure out how to incorporate these things in my life so that by the end of this year, I have explored them to some degree and I can make informed, like instead of just, oh, well, society tells me I'm fat, so I should probably lose weight. So let's set a goal of, you know, get skinny by the end of January, which is not at all feasible when you are a person of my size, first of all. Let's just do that. That's just really defeatist. Really defeatist. Instead, I'm looking at this, accept where I am. This is our starting point. This is where we're at. I want to make changes, but I don't even know how they're going to feel in my life because you know what? I have not lived that life. So how do I know what that's going to be like? Right? So that's what we're doing. Small little somethings, which is kind of this vague amorphous blob of concept of the direction that we want to go in. And look, we made a video about it. Yay! I think as a YouTuber, I'm supposed to be sure to like end this video going, oh yeah, like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. I would love to discuss this and whether my rambling created any thoughts in your head on how you want to approach making changes in your life. If you do, maybe you don't. That's cool. I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to do my own thing and apparently share about it on the internet. So yeah, let's chat in those comments, and I will see you in the next video, which will be at some time at some place. But that's all I can tell you about it. All right. Lots of love. Bye.